Day 4 of 10? I don't know, something like that.
Of many.
Yes, of many. We're back for another afternoon Q&A with several of our filmmakers today. I think this is our biggest day yet. And one of them is about a bit of a time crunch, so I'll just very quickly talk about what we are showing today. We have 2 screenings. One is a collection of horror shorts, which is who we're mostly talking with today.
Spooky.
What's that?
Spooky.
Yeah, Spooky Thursday Night. Who doesn't like that? Love Song, The Escape, Pepper, Hemi, Time Heals No Wounds, Evelyn, the Cutest Evil Dead Girl, and The Calming. And then we also have a second screening of The Bingo Robbers by Lois Brown, kind of classic Newfoundland independent film, along with The King and the Master Builder, which is a short animated piece.
With Sir Ian McKellen in it.
Yes, Sir Ian McKellen does have a voice part in that film.
Imagine.
He is a celebrity. He is Gandalf. So we're going to start talking to some of the filmmakers now. And first up, we have Mike Hickey with The Calming. Hello, Mike.
Hey, how's it going, guys? It's good to be part of this whole thing. It's super fun.
Yes, Mike, thanks for taking time literally away from a shoot right now to talk to us.
I've had to wear a mask on set the whole time, so it's good to just like get out and like not be constantly. I'm gonna lay my keys down though because I don't want to keep jangling them in front of the thing. Yeah.
Yes. Well, your film, The Calming, it was it's from the archive from 2014, I believe.
I think so. I think it was the second, or I think it was the second horror challenge that the Nickel did. And so I had done the first year with me and Blair Downey. We got back together. We did it again for the second year, and actually no, it was the third year. It was the third horror challenge year. And me and Blair had done the first one, and The Calming was we weren't able to work on the second one together, and then The Calming we kind of reunited and got the band back together and did that one.
Nice. But you had been working in film and making films prior to the film challenges, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I've been working in film. I had been working in the industry at like a production company. I had always seemed to have something kind of cooking right around the same time as the horror challenge. So I had just finished up a year or so as an assistant editor on Majumdar Manor around the time we made The Calming.
And what would you say? What's the difference, or what kind of approach do you take in something like the quick 48-hour challenges compared to, maybe a longer, more involved process?
I kind of prefer the 48-hour thing because it's just you're under such a crunch, and it's just you get a chance to be so creative and kind of quick on your toes. Like, you write in a 48-hour window when you're making the movie. You kind of write to what you have. You write to the people you have. You write to the locations you have. You try to be, at least I do anyway. You try to be very kind of conservative with regards to like effects and things. Like it's a very much a don't necessarily show and kind of imply more stuff and understanding that you have such a time crunch. Don't try to do big effects that are going to be time consuming and all that kind of thing. And so it just allows you to kind of be a little bit more atmospheric, I guess.
Yeah, totally.
Is what we kind of, especially that's what we went with The Calming, was trying to be really atmospheric and build up suspense that way, as opposed to necessarily showing a lot of on-camera violence or scares or whatever. We did a hanging effect, like a gag, where we just had a friend of ours she's like 4'10". She climbed up on a stool, and we had 2 people holding like a 2x4, and she just like hung on to it out of frame and kicked out the stool and just like hung there for a bit. And that's how we did the opening shot of the movie. And so it's just like fun little things like that you get to play with in 48 hours, where a lot of times if you have more time and more prep and more resources, you might try to make that bigger, but that being that simple really kind of worked for us. We even talked about doing, like, we were going to do a rope tightening kind of shot in there, and we just decided we didn't need it because that simple effect that we did worked really well.
Yeah, and I guess that those lessons really sort of translate over to, when you are working on bigger projects, you start to remember like, oh yeah, maybe this like very complicated thing that we need is actually not serving the story or whatever, you know what I mean? Like,
there's times that you just get way out of hand and kind of lose, when you're I've done a couple picture starts now too, where it's just been like, yeah, sometimes the bigger something is doesn't necessarily make it better in some ways, in that like sometimes like, yeah, like the really simple boiled down stuff. And even in the picture starts, when we've done things like that, it's kind of worked better than some of the bigger things. So it's kind of fun to just keep it really simple and try to be creative in ways to do that sort of stuff.
Now, Mike, you're a horror guy. That's fair to say, right?
I think so.
What attracts you so much to that genre? Like what makes you keep returning to it?
For me, I haven't nailed it is my personal reason why I keep coming back as a filmmaker. Is like I still have it's the type of stories that I've always preferred. I always like something that's a little bit scarier, and I like something that's got a little bit more more of that reaction, just kind of spooky unease. Like it's just always like that's the kind of stories I like to hear, and it's the kind of movies I like to watch, and it's the kinds of things I like to do. And so because of that, I keep kind of going to it and trying to really carve out my own kind of niche in it. And it's fun to see how much it's taken off here. I mean, we started doing the horror challenge in 2012, I think was the first one. Maybe, yeah, 2012, I guess was the first one. And I mean, over the years, you've seen it grow, and you've seen guys like, you know, the Grind Mind guys and Dingus and other kind of collectives and little things pop up around it. And I mean, you're really seeing horror in Newfoundland and St. John's, especially. Like it's really kind of picking up steam over the last few years, and that's really kind of cool to see. And I completely hold myself responsible for it. Like it's all
It's true, Mike. It is all in here. Well, Mike, I don't want to keep you from set any longer. Thank you so much for taking the time to come in.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great, and it's so kind of cool to see you guys still plugging away with this kind of virtual festival this year. As somebody, you know, I was on the nickel board for a while, and it's kind of cool to see how things are still kind of going. And this is year 20, right?
This is year 20.
This is a big one. So congratulations. And I can't thank, as somebody who put in some work on the board for a number of years, I can't thank you and Elling enough for all the hard work you guys have been putting in and killing it over the last few years.
Oh, that's very kind, Mike. Really appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much.
I'm still mad that you beat my film in that first challenge. The calming was one of my films.
Which one was it? Was that the stop motion one you did?
I think it might have been a stop motion one that year. I can't remember.
You always went kind of nuts with it early on too. I remember your stuff was always like really big, really ambitious, and it was like these kinds of projects where I was like, how the hell is he pulling this off? And like there's animation and there's all kinds of stuff, and like I think that was the year you did that stop motion thing with that little plasticky guy. Was that right? Yeah.
Still mad.
Well, I'm this one best film and scariest film that year in the challenge, and I'm still hanging my hat on it all these years later. Great. Like it's been 6 years and I haven't topped this one.
Well, we're playing it again, so you know, obviously it's
there we go. And me and Blair just wrote one, and it's the first thing we've done in a long time. We're gonna try to, you know, go out, get the Grind Mind guys out helping out, and doing something kind of similar in a couple weeks.
That's amazing. So excited.
Yeah, we're really excited.
Cool. All right, Mike.
All right. Thanks, guys, so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Thanks so much to Mike for joining us in the middle of a work day. I think now Elling's going to take it away and talk to.
Yeah. Maybe I'll talk to Greg first. About Love Song.
And Michael. Michael Sanders, the director, as well.
Greg and Michael. Yes.
We got two people from that team on the.
Oh, I see him there. Yeah. There
yes. Yeah.
Hey guys, what's up?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for having your movie in our festival. We're stoked to have it in there.
Well, thanks for programming it. We actually have a little bit of a Newfoundland connection in that film. You probably don't even know that.
No, what's it? Aside from mermaids, because we own mermaids.
No, my VFX guy is from Newfoundland.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What's his name?
Tyler Beaton.
Tyler Beaton. Okay.
Yeah, he's just a young kid. He worked for me at the time remotely, and he did there's I think 12 VFX shots in the film, and he did those for us. So
right.
Yeah.
Awesome. It looked really good. So like pass it on to him. That
we should point out that the VFX shots were partially him fixing what we didn't do practically properly.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
This is an important admission here.
Yeah.
Coming up with solutions to mistakes is, that's a big part of filmmaking.
Yeah, right. That is
slap some duct tape on it.
Yeah.
Throw some blood on it. Don't worry. So how did this film come together?
Well, it was originally planned as a 48-hour film festival entry here in Winnipeg. And I think maybe it's an idea that Greg and I had been throwing around for I think we had it floating around for a year or two. And then about 2 weeks before the 48-hour film fest, we sort of had a come to Jesus moment where we realized that the film we wanted to make required an extra day or two, and we were not going to be able to shoot it in a day and edit it in a day. So we just kind of threw that plan out the door. We had everyone ready to go, so we just kept the shoot. We just shot for the full weekend rather than trying to edit and deliver it in that weekend.
I can be sometimes to high concept stuff. So I can point out that Love Song started as something that we were doing where on the 13th of every month, the hour before midnight on the 13th of every month for 13 months, I would get together with writers. And in an hour, we would try to come up with a complete film treatment, just only plus oneing. So we'd say an idea, add an idea, say an idea, add an idea, and try within an hour to get a complete plot just before midnight on the 13th of every month. So Love Song was one of those sort of little concept projects.
Wow, that's incredible. Like so obviously you guys are driven by time-based challenges or like
nothing.
I'd say it's not even time-based. I think we're driven by constraints. I think that constraint is the most important element in any sort of artistic endeavor. I think that if you're smart about those constraints and you're strategic about the constraints that you sort of impose on yourself, I think that's where the magic happens.
Is there something in particular about horror that lends itself well to that kind of approach, or is it?
Absolutely, because horror doesn't require a lot of top-heavy elements that you find in a lot of other film productions. So meaning you're typically probably not working with an A-list actor on your project. You're probably working with a lot of people you know. You're probably working with younger crews. You're probably working with people that are willing to take some chances and are a little bit more flexible in their approach in general. And I mean, that's a pretty probably broad generalization, but
the other thing that's great about horror, the other thing that's great about horror is that you can add it into anything. You can write a really great dramatic script, and then when you add some horror into it,
it's a horror movie. Yeah,
it's a horror movie.
What like how would you do that? How, like, what kind of like you just throw some blood on it? Exactly. Like
sure, but I mean, you can take anything. Imagine Citizen Kane with a vampire in it. It's still a great movie, but then awesome, there's a horror element.
Roseblood.
And I'm making a note.
You can have it. Go for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think horror just in general, there's just a lot of latitude. There's just a lot of latitude in content and even just in approach. There's all sorts of different style within the horror genre. It's almost endless. So there's all sorts of, and I think it's inherently, apart from our VFX shots, we tried to do as much in camera as possible. Mm-hmm. The only VFX, the VFX shots mostly, we're just removing a bathing suit from our mermaid. That's what the VFX shots were.
Right.
So, it wasn't really maybe feasible to have her completely naked for the whole shoot. That didn't seem fair.
Right.
And even on the first day when our actor showed up, I took Carl aside, who plays the husband, and I said, I have this idea for this last shot. I really think it would be great if you could go bare ass on the last shot, because Raisa's going to have to be in basically nude for these whole 2 days. It only seems fair that we have a bit of male nudity in this film. So he was more than willing to participate, but
more than willing. Interesting.
More. He did not take much convincing. No.
Well, that's great. Like, is there any one thing that you're most particularly proud of about this film? Both of you, like, say.
I'm proud of Mike for finding the film in the edit. What we went to shoot and what we ended up with were very different.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I'm very proud of Mike for saying, "Hey guys, there's still a film in here, and I'll just go find it."
Well, I think that honestly, like the mistake we made was the script was probably, it was fine if it was a 48-hour film festival submission. I just felt like when we came out of the shoot, it was obvious that it was a little bit undercooked. And I think it's a 2-act story. It's really just the first and the third. There's no real middle act to it. And so that was very apparent. And so we had some other scenes with the actors. There's a couple scenes that were either shortened or removed completely because they just never led to anything. It was like this character development for the sake of proving that you're doing character development, and it was unnecessary. It never really led to anything. So just a lot of that kind of stuff. It was a tough couple days for us. It was a tough few days. You're always missing something, you know what I mean? So yeah. But particularly, I think there's a lot that I think turned out really well. My favorite shot is the last shot with the tail, because it's completely practical in camera with a real mermaid. So that was an achievement for us. I thought, or a woman that identifies as a mermaid, I should say. She wasn't. She has a tail, and she's a friend of ours, and so I think we took about 6 takes to get the timing down. But
her advisor was, I will do this. She's a trained lifeguard also, and so she said, as long as you credit me as a real mermaid, I'm in.
Excellent. We had a documentary about people who do identify as mermaids a couple of years ago. Yeah, and it's a thing. People. It's a thing. Yeah, it's a thing. People they find it, and it helps them become who they are. So it's pretty beautiful, and also the story in your movie as well.
That's right. Very much so. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thanks guys for joining us.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah, I'm really stoked to have your film in the show. So yeah, we're going to move on. Who should we move on to now? Perhaps we could talk to Kate Felix about Pepper. Kate, how are you?
I'm great.
How are the pancakes?
You may or may not all know my legal name now.
Yeah, right. Yes. So you were just making pancakes earlier. It looks delicious.
They're done. They're done now.
They're done. So tell me about Pepper. How did Pepper come about for you?
Pepper is the second film that I ever made as the director. And basically it was made because the set was available to us. So I'm not somebody that normally works in the thriller horror genre. Not that I would normally work in anything if it's my second film, but like I'm also a writer and a playwright. So, but my friend who owns the farm where the barn is, he basically was going to knock down the barn because they haven't used it in 20 years. And it's basically just been like sitting there scarifying for all that time. And he basically said, well, I just was over at his house and he said, oh, I'm going to knock down the barn. And I said, whoa, like don't knock it down until we film something there, because that is a like set tragedy. And so I wrote the film for the set because the set was available to us, and the set didn't really scream out rom-com. And
no, it certainly didn't. I mean, you could probably try, but it would be a little awkward, maybe.
Yeah.
So, yeah. For people who haven't seen it, it is truly an extremely unnerving space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's real. Like.
Yeah, it looks real. Yeah.
It is. Like, so we had the most non-union shoot in the world, like. It allowed us to bat a lot above our weight as far as production value, like production went, because it was just all there. We just had, we had to light it, we had to, set it up and stuff, but we didn't like the amount of actual sort of set design, art design, whatever that we did was pretty minimal. It was just kind of there. And so it was really an exercise in taking advantage of the resources that we had available to us to make like the best film that we could make in that setting, given that we'd been given that opportunity by my friend Donnie.
Wow. Yeah, it is astounding. Like you made a good call to seizing that moment and taking that set piece. How did the story come together? Did you were the writer as well, or is that?
Yeah. So I wrote the screenplay, and which is minimal dialogue in it. There's a whole scene that got taken out because what we were talking about before, that once we did it, realized it didn't really actually need it. So we took about a third of the film out, which was hurt me quite a bit, but that was the decision that we had to make. But essentially, I wrote the script. I just thought, what would be a story you could tell in that set, which is not usually the way that you would go about writing something. But, I think other people have talked about writing or producing art under constraints, and I'm very much a producing art under constraints person. And so, I think it allows you to be a lot more creative, where you're like, okay, something has to happen. It has to be something we can shoot in 2 days because that's what we can afford. And it has to be something that really sort of brings out the horror elements of our set. And I walked it back from there. And I wanted it to be something that wasn't like, I've been reading a lot on online, blogs or whatever, film festivals, about, there's been a lot of criticism of horror films as being not particularly feminist and that sort of thing. And so I wanted to make sure that the protagonist, who's female, would ultimately end up to be the victor. So the message would be more like, not that that's like everyone's brand of feminism, that, you would actually just get your sort of dog person that you just rescued to eat the throat out of the aggressor male. Like, that's not really my sort of plan for moving forward with feminism in our society, but nonetheless.
Not a direct line. It can take some detours.
Like there are images in art which can promote, different things in society, depending on how people interpret it. But I wanted to make sure that we had a strong female lead, and it was a bit of a surprise strong female lead, because I think it sets it up to not go that way initially, and then it does. So that was an important piece for me, and I think it was also what a lot of the crew who worked on it with me, what made it attractive to them was that more like that angle. And my editor said when we went to edit it, at one point early in the process, she said, like, I really wanted to work on this film because I love feminist revenge horrors. I'm like, is that a genre? Like, is that a thing? And she's like, well, yeah, like, that's what this is. I'm like, sure. Like, I didn't know that was a thing, but I guess we just made one. So it was kind of cool to hear it like that. And a lot of people have different interpretations of it. It was when we were at, I forget which festival in the States that it was at. And, you see those descriptions of how people describe the film. And sometimes they don't use your description, they use their own description. And they interpreted it as a political statement on the plight of migrant workers. And they just like went right out and said, they just said, this is a political horror, talking about the plight of migrant workers in the US. And I was just like, that is such an interesting interpretation and not at all what I meant, but I can totally see why you think that. And that is so cool.
That's amazing. Wow. So like it's making your film seem even more radical than it.
Yeah. No, I didn't think it was so radical, but a lot of people interpreted it that way, which I thought was awesome.
Wow. Yeah. No, I did think about, like, with the situation of work, like the responsibility of an employee and stuff, and that's like.
But I guess that it depends on what political lens you're applying to it, and and if you're in the States and that's like a super issue and that's something that's topical, then you may quite reasonably assume that was the lens.
Absolutely. Wow. Well, that's cool. That's really cool. Congratulations on being in this festival. And do you have anything else you'd like to say or add or?
No, just thanks a lot for including me, and thanks a lot for watching.
Okay. All right. And now we're on to Time Heals No Wounds. Jordan and Carolyn, hi.
Sorry, let me just unmute there. Thanks for bearing with us.
You're on set on the movie that
exactly. We're still working on it. It just never ends.
So wow. So this movie, Time Heals No Wounds. How did it come together for you?
Well, we're both big fans of retro horror. Let me know if you can't hear me, by the way.
We can hear you
borrowing Carolyn's mic. Okay. We're big fans of retro horror, like especially, 80s horror and practical effects and all of that. And we started to, as we dove deeper into the genre, realize that a lot of it was very 50s inspired. There was a resurgence of 1950s kind of horror in the 1980s, which kind of paralleled today we have this resurgence of 1980s horror. And so we thought at the same time we were watching all these old trailers and stuff from the 1950s, and they were so flashy and just off the wall and kind of gaudy. And we just thought it would be really fun to just mash those two eras together and see how it turns out.
Your lightning was definitely very 50s.
Thank you. I'm glad you think so. Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. And it's the special effects also were very the mask and the liquid that was on the mask was was terrifying. Anyway.
Thank you.
It's all Carolyn. She spent so long working on that stuff.
Yeah. So what were your roles in this? You were who did what?
I'm one of the producers, and I built all of the makeup effects.
Mm-hmm.
And I directed, co-wrote it.
And is this one of many films that you've made, or is this an early film, or what?
Is this our sixth film, I think. As Off-World Pictures, we make little cheesy horror films together.
And this one was a big collab with a bunch of friends of ours here in Vancouver, Bad Cookie Pictures and Luchador Productions. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. Once we started showing the script to people, people were really into it. And we ended up having a lot of people work on this.
It was our biggest one for sure. We usually Jordan and I'll make a film together with a couple of friends and keep it super low key, but we wanted to try doing something big. It was pretty intense.
To really amp it up.
Mm-hmm.
I can't compare, but did it meet your expectations? Did it really level up on your involving so many more people? Does it equate?
It was a really interesting challenge. We wanted to try doing film properly, with all the different departments and a bigger crew. It definitely lends itself to a lot more. I think you see on camera that there's a lot of people working on a lot of different departments, and it really shows. But it's definitely a lot more work because there's so many people.
Yeah, it's a lot more refined than some of our other stuff because, a lot of the times it's just us just flying by the seat of our pants. And, this time, we had an experienced crew who, knew what they were doing. So, and that kind of gave us more to work with.
What did it enable you to do that was different than compared to previous movies, say?
Well, just having people dedicated to certain roles, certain departments, having somebody looking after production design and cinematography and music, and oftentimes just us cobbling that stuff together. So we really appreciate all the people who stepped it up. And
we had a stunt team for the first time, which is fantastic.
Yeah, we had stunt coordinators.
Yeah.
Wow.
The art department too, that set, the lab set, it looks so cool. And there's so many people who helped it look that way. It was pretty fun. It's cool to be on it.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it was super stressful at the time, but yeah. Looking back.
I can't remember if you said this before, but how long was the process? How long was the filming?
Well, the actual production was about, I guess you could say 4 days. It was 3 12-hour days and 2 6-hour days. Pre-production was most of a year because, it's one thing to write something like this.
Yeah.
But then once you start like trying to put the pieces together and figure out how to actually make it happen, it gets a lot more complicated. So like, because it's a period piece, sort of, we had to build a lot of props and find a lot of props. And our apartment was just like overflowing with all these like all this lab equipment. It was just everywhere. And of course, Carolyn spent months and months and months working on the creature effects. And yeah, just like location scouting as well. Like, you know, originally I wrote it to be in the attic of a house. And I was like really adamant about it all taking place inside this one house. But that just turned out to be like impossible to find. Like we looked all over. We looked like in the, like across the border in Washington. We looked like on Vancouver Island. And like the only places we could find were like places that were used to having movie shoots and wanted to charge a lot of money for it.
Sure.
But eventually it was friend James, who worked on the special effects team. He had some contacts who like they had a house with a barn on a big property out in Maple Ridge.
Another barn.
And so yeah.
Find the barn.
It saved the day.
Build the movie.
The first we were in this loft area, and that's where we like built the lab set. Yeah. Underneath there were like chickens and like
horses.
Yeah, and they were making sound the whole time. And then
they
like
would have been loud, yeah.
Yeah. We had to block out all the windows with this like really heavy grade like construction paper, basically. Sure. So, and it was in the middle of summer. It was like the hottest weekend of the year. So it was sweltering hot in there. And because we had blocked out all the windows, it turns out there were bats living in there. And I guess they thought it was night. So the bats were flying around while we were trying to shoot. Yeah. Challenges.
I'm shocked that you didn't use any bat footage in your movie.
They're hard to catch.
Yeah, they're really fast. They might be in there. It's hard to tell.
I don't know what was one of the most fun things that you that came about shooting this movie for you guys?
I think it was getting to work with so many of our friends at once.
Yeah, it's true. Definitely. Yeah, like oftentimes the film scene in Vancouver, like in the independent horror scene, like, you know, we come together at film festivals and things like that. And some of us work, like we all work on each other's stuff in some capacity, but this was one time when like a bunch of us were able to come together and work on one thing, and that was definitely a lot of fun and pretty special, I think. And then of course anything like involving practical effects on set, like, you know, it's kind of nerve-wracking because oftentimes you only get one shot to get it right. But then when you get it, it's just like, yeah, you're so pumped about it.
Explodes just right.
Yeah.
Oozing just perfectly.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thanks guys. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks a lot.
Do you have anything else that you'd like to add, or?
Oh, just that we wish we were there.
Oh yeah,
yeah, definitely. So yeah,
Carolyn, you're from Newfoundland, right?
I am. Yeah, I was super stoked to be home for the summer, but I have to move it to another one.
Yes, hopefully. Well, yes, thank you guys. Thanks to all of our filmmakers today for sharing their works and for taking the time to talk to me and Elling. I will
by the fireside.
Here in my cozy fireside winter chalet, I will very quickly run through what we have on the docket for tomorrow. We just have one program tomorrow of short films. Included in that is Roller Coaster, which is our new Voices film, directed by Santiago Guzman and written by Marianne Agalou. We also have Video Dating from Chrissy Breen, Mute from Constance Hilton, Unofficial Selection from Gordon Meehan, Walking the Fence Line from Jesse Foster, and Mum's the Word from our own tech director, Ed Tanisic. Yeah, so
Ed Tanisic.
Tanisic. Sorry, Ed. Sorry, Ed, if you're watching. And yeah, so check that out tomorrow, and check these films out tonight. That's it.
Thanks everybody.
Thank
Happy
you all.